Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with the next update for my No Pan Left Behind. This is somewhat of a casual project for me. I obviously do try to hit No Pan Left Behind on my palettes in here, but it's not as urgent, I would say, as like my Panda eyeshadows, my Product Level Up and my Panda palette. But I do want to reach for every single eyeshadow in my collection this year, so this project is really helping with that, and that's kind of also why I introduced it. With this project I'm working on 3 palettes at any point in time, and of course when I have used every single eyeshadow in each palette I roll it out. So I'm going to go through the 3 palettes that I was working on over the past month, and I will also let you know if I'm rolling anything else in. But before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So the first out of the 3 palettes that I have to talk about is this one right here. This is my Lilac You A Lot palette from Colourpop, and it looks like this. This palette is a beautiful kind of spring tone palette, and that's why I rolled it in. I do really like this color story. However, I'm getting to a point in my kind of makeup collection where I feel like my Colourpop palettes might not be the quality that I'm looking for anymore, or the quality might have gone bad, especially with the shimmers. I think what I'm going to do is, I know for a fact I'm going to do this, but I haven't filmed it yet. But in the next week or so I will post a video decluttering all of my Colourpop palettes and my Colourpop singles, Super Shock shadows, everything like that. Because I just feel like some of these just aren't up to par anymore when it comes to the formula, especially again the shimmers, because I have so many beautiful in the eyeshadows that I would rather reach for than these. So this is one that I will go through in the next couple of days and film and possibly declutter. But I do like this palette. I like the looks that I get with this palette. It has been one of my favorite monotone kind of 9-pan palettes from Colourpop. It's only this one and the Aha Honey I have left, and this one is probably my favorite out of those. So I do love this palette, and it has gotten a lot of use, as you can see. But yeah, we'll see what happens with it when I declutter it, or when I go through the shades. I might depot some, I might switch some shadows out, I might combine them with a different palette. We'll see what I do, but that is the first one I had. And I have reached No Pan Left Behind on this palette. The second palette is my most recent No Pan Left Behind, and that is my Utopian Dream from Pat McGrath. This one here was my first palette from Pat McGrath, and I love this palette. This was a very special place in my heart. I reached for this one. I ended up doing 3 looks with it. My first look with it, by the way, with the Lilac You A Lot palette, I don't remember exactly what looks I did with that one. I think combine it a lot with other palettes, and that's kind of why I don't remember which one I used everything in, but this one I do. So the first look I did was actually quite a sultry evening look. I went for like a date on a Friday after work, and I did my makeup using this brown here and then blending it out with this one. And then I used this multi-chrome right here. Hopefully you can see. I don't know if you can pick it up maybe. Oh yeah, you can see in the mirror there. It goes into like a green. You can see it right up there. So it's like I would say like a burgundy to green, and it's absolutely beautiful. And for being one of those like almost black base multi-chrome, the base isn't too deep, which I really appreciate. But I put that all over my lid, and then I did put this one in my inner corner, and then I think this one on my lower lash line. So that was the first look, and I used half the palette in that look. Second look I did, I used this here as my crease color. I also used this one on like the middle part of my lid. I used this one on my inner part of my lid, and then I topped with this purple here, like on top of this shadow. And then lastly I only have this kind of gold shadow left, and I used it in a look with other kind of orange tones, actually similar orange tones that I'm wearing today, but I used the kind of gold shadow in here instead of the purple one I'm wearing today. So that is this one, and again it is completed. I love that palette. I have definitely fallen in love with it more since rolling into this project. I feel like the more I play around with it, the more I love it. So that is again the next palette. Then lastly we have the biggest palette out of 3, and this is my Love Notes palette from Beauty Bay. This one looks like this. It's like a pastel palette with a lot of like purples, some neutrals up here, and then some pinky kind of reddier tones here. I really love this palette. It's beautiful. I love that it's so soft and not very deep, because sometimes like for every day I don't really go for super deep looks, and if I do want them I do have a few options in here, or I can reach for other things to complement with this palette. But yeah, I absolutely love this one. I've had it into my Panda eyeshadows twice this year. I pan on Spark and Bellini. I also pan on this one here last year. and overall it's a very beautiful palette. With this one, again, I reached for this one a lot in combination with other things, so I don't have specific looks to share with you what I used, but yeah, I love this palette a lot, and I can see this one almost possibly replacing my Lilac Yellow palette. I hadn't really thought about this before, but someone mentioned it, I can't remember which video, but they said like my Lilac Yellow palette and my Love Notes palette are quite similar, and I mean they're not the same, but they have the purples in both palettes, so I might actually compare this one to the Lilac Yellow palette when I do that in the glitter video. But yeah, I love this one. I love the shimmers more in this palette, so I think I would be more inclined to keep, obviously I will keep this palette, but declutter similar shades in here if they are in here as well. So those were all of the palettes that I had in the project. On top of that, I have actually hit 2 more palettes with no plan left behind. It's not my best month when it comes to like reaching for palettes no plan left behind, but that's okay. But the first palette that I did reach for no plan left behind was my Lilac Yellow palette. After that, it was my Love Nose palette in Beauty Bay, and then after that it was a palette that isn't in this project, and that is the Kaleidos Sashimi City, which is a 6-pan from Kaleidos. Obviously it's one of those like futurism palettes. I did also reach for no pan left behind on my Pat McGrath Moonlit Seduction, which is a palette I got from my friend Martina. I have videoed that in my beauty budget update, so check that out. It was a lot of makeup that I got from her, and I'm trying to play around with those things. But that is the first one out of those that I had hit no pan left behind on. And then lastly, it was the Utopian Dream. So those are the 5 palettes that I hit no pan left behind on. And again, so I got quite a few new palettes from Martina, and because of that my total palettes went up quite a bit. I think it was like maybe 11 it went up. So I now have 54 palettes, and altogether I have reached for 18 palettes no plan left behind, and that actually equals to exactly 33.33%. So I am basically exactly on par for now, or at least if you consider end of April, because end of April we are gone for 4 months of the year, which is 1/3. So I guess with the kind of first 2 weeks of May I am a little bit behind, but there are palettes as well that I have reached for a couple of shades, but not yet no pan left behind, so I would say that I am on track. So hopefully I can stay on track for the next upcoming months. So then my next kind of mini goal would be to have reached for all my palettes no pan left behind at 50% at the halfway mark throughout the year, which is end of June. So let's see how I do, but that is where I am with my stats. So let's talk through the palettes that I'm introducing, and the first one that I'm introducing is this one right here, which is my Red Dragon palette from Oden's Eye in combination with Judy. This is a palette that I always say in theory would be one of my like top palettes, because like the color story is exactly what I love. It has like the greens that I love, the murky greens. It has like more peachy tones, also some morosiness to it. It's like neutral but with a twist, and it's exactly what I would love in theory. But I just never reach for this palette, and I don't know why. So I want to put this one in just to get my use out of it, but also get to know it a bit better. So that is the first palette that I'm introducing, and this one is a 12 pan. So that is the first one. Next up we have a palette from Anastasia, and this is my Amrezy palette. This is one that I had in my Pandas eyeshadows earlier this year as well, and I reached for the shade Cupcake. But that is the only shadow in here that I have reached for so far this year, and I think this is a very kind of summer palette, but it does have those kind of purpley tones that I think works well for spring as well. So I think it's a good time to roll it in now between spring and summer. It has one of my favorite mainstream shimmers, which is the shade Barb. I love that one so much, and yeah, I just want to use this one. It is quite well loved with quite a few pans, but overall I just want to get to know this palette more, because I don't really reach for this palette much as a standalone palette, which is a shame because it is beautiful. But that is the next palette, and hopefully I can get some looks exclusively using this palette. So that again is the next palette that I'm rolling in. Then lastly we're rolling in another 12 pan palette. The Colourpop palette is a 16 pan palette, right? Yeah, 16 pans. And then lastly we're doing another 12 pan palette, and that is actually another one from Colourpop. This is the At First Sight in collaboration with Raw Beauty Christie. I got this as well from Martina, but like it was end of 2021, so like I think no, December possibly 2021. So I've had it for about a year and a half, and I have barely reached for this one. I reached for maybe 1 or 2 shadows, but I haven't even reached for this shadow in here since I got it. So I do want to play around with this one and see how I like it. I've heard the quality in here is like one of the best from Colourpop, so I want to see if that's true. And again, I feel like I am gonna most likely keep this as it is, because like I said, with Colourpop declutter, It's mainly the shimmers that are on the shopping block, but you know, it depends. If I take some palettes apart, I might declare some of the mattes too. But this one is one that I think will stay the same. It only has 2 shimmers in it, and looking at them, they are the type of shimmers that I would love. So we'll see how this one goes, but I'm excited to play around with it because it is a beautiful color story. And although it might not be the most summery, maybe this would be more autumnal, I feel like I have a lot of palettes that I'm saving for autumn to use, and I feel like it might overwhelm me, so I'm going to start getting through some of them earlier, and this is one that I'm happy to play around with now. So that is the last palette that I'm introducing, and that is also the end of this video. If you're tracking your eyeshadow uses this year, how are you doing with no pan left behind? How are you doing with your eyeshadow uses? How many eyeshadows have you reached for? Are you also doing like a no pan left behind project? If so, what palettes are you working on at the moment? And otherwise, I really hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will talk to you in my next one. Bye guys!